Welcome back to the Stebbins Garage YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm working on the 92 Firebird. We're getting ready to put the LS3 in, so I've got a little bit to do on the front of the engine before it's ready to go in. We're gonna go ahead and get that in, and then we're gonna start putting everything back together. In the next episode after this one, we're gonna do some more stuff with the exhaust. I got some cool stuff for that. And then finally, should be getting our Hawks rear end pretty soon. And then we're gonna get this thing running. So I hope you'll stick around. Okay, next up we're gonna put on the balancer. And one of the things that we're gonna do is we're gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on this thing just to help it get past the seal. We don't want that to be dry going on. We don't need a whole lot. Just want enough to keep it from messing up our seal. And then I'm gonna be using a special tool to install this. It has a bearing in it. It looks like this. You can get it on Amazon. But the nice thing is you screw this in and then you just tighten this and you don't have to do anything special to get that to go in. It should just pull itself on up there. So we're gonna kind of sit that basically like that. I'm gonna go ahead and screw this thing in. We wanna make sure we grab a lot of threads. I've already loosened the timing cover. You want that kind of loose when it's going in and it'll center. And then from there, we're gonna take that and I'm gonna use a ratchet. And while I'm putting this on, I'm just kind of watching to make sure that it's going on straight, which everything looks like it's fine. I'm going to move you over here. All right. So you're going to be watching right here, because that's what I'm watching. We want to make sure that that pulls all the way up. And then once it pulls all the way up, we'll know that it's flush and we'll be good to go. And then I'm gonna torque all the timing cover bolts back down. All right, so that's tight. So I'm gonna go ahead and back this off a little bit. And then I'm gonna pull this out. And then I'm gonna look at the front and make sure that we got that whole thing flush. Well, that was a lot of me working. Got everything done on the LS3 that needs to be done. The LM7, the 5.3 that's kind of worn out is sitting over there, stripped of all the parts that we need to get this LS3 dropped in here. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is the power steering bracket from ICT Billet. This is the alternator from AC Delco with an ICT Billet bracket and idler. This is our AC compressor. We've got our balancer, we talked about that, and then there is our water pump. That water pump probably has 500 miles on it, so I didn't feel bad about swapping it over. Normally if it had more miles, we'd go ahead and put a new one on, but no need to do that. And then there's our tensioner. We're gonna leave the same thermostat that was in here, which is I think a 185. These valve covers are coming off. We're gonna actually swap to the LSA ones I did a while back. And then I put the F-body, the 98 to 02 F-body, or LS1 oil sending unit. It's a pressure sensor. And I think that's pretty much it. This is ready to go in, so next will be, oh, and I got the engine mounts on. So next, I think what I'm gonna do is go ahead and actually just drop it in the car, sit it on the mounts and all that. I still need to put the flywheel and the clutch and pressure plate, the pilot bearing, all that stuff on here. I think it's gonna be easier to have it in the car. That way I can torque everything. I'll have a way to hold the balancer for, keep the engine from rotating once that's all together. And I've got enough room in there that I can get my torque wrench in there and all that. So I think that's what we're gonna do. So I guess next I'm gonna hype myself up and throw this thing in. That, my friends, is supercar oil. That's what's required for that LS3. So I pretty much have a supercar. What I'm gonna work on right now is I need to prime the engine. I wanna prime it before I sit it in the car just because it's a little easier to work on anything if I have any issues. But I'm gonna use this insecticide sprayer. It's a pump sprayer. I've got a tire valve. We're gonna be able to put air in that. I've got a fitting that goes in the side of the block that will allow us to push this oil into the side of here. So we're gonna pull the alternator off. There's a port right back there. And I'm gonna pull the valve covers off. We're basically just gonna push oil through this system just to get it kind of lubed up. We'll do that again before we fire the engine. That's part of the requirements that they list in the GM manual that comes with this, that you need to prime it before you fire it. I didn't on my other one, but I spent a whole bunch of money on this thing, so I wanna make sure it's right. Okay, I just pulled that through. That should be good and tight. So now we can go ahead and fit the line. Just spent the last 30 minutes trying to find some clear tubing. This black stuff would be fine, but I'd like to see the oil moving through. So this is 1/4 inch ID, 3/8 OD. We're basically just gonna cut this here, and I have a little splice. We're gonna splice the clear in. That way we can see the oil moving through the system. I may have forgot to hit record, but anyway, I just heated this tube up a little bit. They slid together. I have a couple of clamps. We're gonna just clamp it together. Just thought I'd mention I had to heat this tube just a little bit to get it on there. I heated it and then pushed a screwdriver in there and then it slid right on. We're using a clamp, so it's not a big deal, but I figured I'd mention that. As you can see, there is a little bit of oil up here that's That's not from anything that the engine has done so far. I have put a little bit of oil on here when I was pre-lubing it, or not pre-lubing it, when I was putting in the rockers and whatever. So we're gonna actually spin the motor over at some point during the process, but I went ahead and pulled the valve covers off. We should be seeing oil seeping out of each of the push rods here, and that's how we'll know that it's reached the top. So I'll probably take a little paper towel and wipe the top of that so that I can tell when it's coming out. All right, so during that time lapse, you may have seen that I kind of panicked for a second. I did not have the valley cover on, which means I did not have the oil pressure sending unit in place, which means that once the oil got to the top, it started leaking out the back. It freaked me out for a minute. We just lost a little bit of oil. It's not a big deal. So I went ahead and put the valley cover and the gasket back on, so we should be okay there. The good news is that means oil got to the top, which should be getting ready to come out all these other orifices. So we're gonna go ahead and pressurize this thing again and try again. All right, you saw on the time lapse, it worked. My $25, $20, I don't know, pump sprayer that we converted into an engine oil pre-luber works awesome. Saved us several $100s compared to buying a unit just for that, and it looks like it worked fine. So we got oil everywhere we needed it. Now that I know that it works, I'll go ahead and throw the engine in the car. I'm gonna take the valley cover back off, put our lifting plate back on, put the valve covers on, put it back in the car, or in the car for the first time, I guess, and then start wiring everything up. Okay, the LS3's in. I got the engine mount bolts in with the nuts on, so it's not going anywhere. Next up will just be kind of reverse order, putting the flywheel, the clutch, the pilot bearing, the transmission, the headers, all the other stuff. We're just gonna work on that when I have time, and pretty soon it'll be running. Okay, so I thought I'd go ahead and get the pilot bearing in. I've just got it kind of set up there, and the way you just tap it in place. I've taken 2 sockets. I'm gonna use one to drive and one bigger one that is bigger than the pilot bearing. That way we get it seated flush without going in too far. So I'm just gonna take a little hammer and gently tap that in. You can see the roller face. You don't see it. This is the tapered side and this is the side that goes out. So we're gonna go ahead and tap that in now. All right, pilot bearing's in, it's sitting flush. My little tool, I just taped, like I said, 2 sockets together, and that allowed a flush surface. Like once it got as far in as we needed it, it stopped. So that worked out well. Okay, torque's all done on everything. That pops right out. So our transmission should just pop in, hopefully. We've got a cool jack. You saw me use that to pull it out. So that'll be the plan. I still have my flywheel lock here. I'll link that in the description. It just holds the flywheel from moving so that we can torque all these things. I need that in place so that I can torque the balancer up front, because that bolt gets torqued to, I think, 240 and then something else. So we're gonna go ahead and leave that in place. So I'm not gonna put the bell housing on just yet. I'll probably move on to tightening that sucker, which I think I can do from underneath. We'll see. It might be easier to do from underneath, actually. So that's the old bolt. We'll use that to put the balancer all the way on, and then once we're done with that, we'll put the new bolt on. All right, here's my brand new balancer bolt. I'm gonna go ahead and thread that in. It gets torqued initially to 110 foot-pounds. Then we loosen it 360 degrees, and then it gets 59 foot-pounds. And then on this one, which has a flanged washer built into the head, we go back and do another 125 degrees, which is where my torque wrench will come in handy because it does angles. So let's see what we got. All right, we're set to 110. Okay, now we're going to loosen it 360 degrees. I put a mark on the bolt so I can see it. You guys can't see it, I apologize, but just trust me. All right, now we're going to go 59 foot-pounds. I'm just setting this. This is a digital torque wrench. It's a Harbor Freight one, but it's really nice. It's a Quinn. If you don't have one, I think you can usually catch them on sale for about 150 bucks, and I use the heck out of it, so I would definitely recommend that you get one if you're doing any kind of engine work. Okay, now I'm going to set this to angle. All right, let's see how we do this. All right, we're at 41, 64, 82. This is getting a little bit hairy. All right, we got 100 degrees. Get my foot back up here. 109. 116. 124. Good Lord. Okay, 125. So that's 281 foot-pounds, 125 degrees. So we are torqued, which means I can go ahead and take the flywheel lock off, and that'll allow us to put our bell housing on and our starter and all that stuff. It's time to put the trans back in. I went ahead and pulled the shifter off just to make it easier to clear. We should be good to go. I'm gonna leave this off until I get the drive shaft back in. That way I can go ahead and just pour my fluid directly in there and let it pour until it drains out the top weep hole or whatever, the fill. So this is all ready. We should be able to just basically go and slide it up in there, and hopefully it just goes. I've got this fancy jack, so as long as I don't dump it off the jack, things should go okay. Fingers crossed. Okay, let me catch you up. Transmission is in. I was on the struggle bus. Trying to do that by myself, even with the jack, is kind of difficult. So I put the camera down, moved it out of the way, turned it off, and bam, everything went in. Next I'm gonna put the drive shaft in, and then I might call it a night. I don't have my exhaust that I want to run on this yet, so I'm not in a big hurry to get this part done. But you know, everything went back together fine. So we're gonna put the drive shaft in, tighten those bolts. I can put the torque arm in too if I want, but I think I'm gonna just do the drive shaft tonight and then we'll be good. Oh boy. There we go. Boy, I'm just on the struggle bus today. I ripped my glove. All right, I picked up a factory LS3 intake manifold today from my buddy Matt McMillan's. He gave me a great deal on it. So we're gonna finally be able to get that put on the car. We're gonna lose that beauty cover because that looks way better. And I have different fuel rails. They'll be here tomorrow. I need to check out what he's got for a map sensor because I think we're gonna need an LS3 one, no big deal. Have a new throttle body coming too. So hopefully we will get this on in the next clip. I've been working away on the exhaust while pipe doing some welding off camera, but we got parts. This came from Motion Race Works. I bought it with my own money. Oh, sticker. This is a Motion Raceworks 92 millimeter drive-by cable. Oh, Icon throttle body. That sure looks nice. All right, sweet. So this will get us going with the LS3 intake that I bought. Super nice piece, man. Looks like it comes with all the hardware. I bought new Delphi throttle position sensors and idle air control valve. So these don't come with those, but I went ahead and got name brand Delphi stuff because I didn't want to have to deal with issues. And then this is an adapter. This will allow us to bolt our intake on So we'll put that together later. Let me put this back in the box and then let's see the other thing that we got. Okay, second part of my order today. These are Holley fuel rails. They are for the stock LS3 intake, just like we got. So I had planned to do those, put the whole intake together tonight, but it's not gonna happen. Looks like we got all the hardware we need. This crossover line. I kind of wish that crossover line was black, so we may look at wrapping something over that so that it's black. But otherwise, look to be nice pieces. They're probably rebranded something. You can tell me in the comments, but I got a good deal on them, so I'm okay with it. Nice. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put this throttle body together. I gotta put the sensors in. So this is the idle air control valve, and then this is the throttle position sensor. They include all the stuff that we need. So I already put some thread lock on there, made a mess. We're gonna go ahead and kind of slide this in, and then we're going to just tighten these down. They give a torque spec of like 32 inch-pounds. I'm not sure if I'm going to torque or if I'm just going to do the German method of good and tight. All right, well, I have this set up for 32 inch-pounds. Let's see. I got the wrong socket. Hang on, let me grab one. Yeah, so there's no torque spec for this, so we're just gonna run with what I got on there. It's sealed up nice. Let me play with this throttle position sensor and see if it'll go in. I'm gonna put a little bit of just a little dielectric grease on the O-ring so that I can get it to kind of seat all the way. And let's see if it'll go in for us. Yep. Should be good like that. There's a little recess for this little slot or the little hole to fit. So I'm going to put a little Loctite on the bolts and we'll put those in too. Looks like it's working appropriately. Cool. Okay. Next up we've got this little plug. The plug goes in right there. I guess you can use that for some other kind of attachment. I don't really know, but for some reason it's a 5mm. Everything else is in standard, so we're gonna go ahead and tighten that sucker up. All right, this is going into aluminum, so I don't think it has to be crammed. All right, and then lastly, they give you bolts for our attachment, which will allow us to connect it to the intake, which is right here. And so see that? That's important. It's hard to find American-made parts these days. Everything's just rebadged China stuff. Okay, looks like that goes there, which makes perfect sense. And then they gave us some bolts. The other 4 bolts are to attach it to the manifold. And so we'll do that here shortly too. All right, so this has a sealing O-ring, which is nice, but it's also super snug on there. So I put a little bit of dielectric grease just so that it would kind of slide in place. That'll make it easier to get off later too. Yeah, that was a much better fit than the last time I tried it. Okay, so we're gonna just start these, and then we'll go around and in a crisscross pattern just snug it down. I mean, you don't want this to fall off, but at the same time there's no danger of these going in your engine. So one nice thing is the throttle blade screws are actually welded on the back side, so you could still get them off if you needed to, but they're definitely not going to get sucked into your expensive engine. So all right, so we got that. We'll go ahead and I'm just going to run these down, and then once they're all the way down, then I'll go back and torque them. All right, and that's pretty much nothing, so yeah, that's only like 32 inch-pounds. All right, so that's all good. Man, this is nice. I've never had a nice throttle body on any of my cars. They've all been either factory or ported factory, so this is exciting. So good. All right, I got some more fittings in, so I decided I'm going to run the crossover tube for my intake across the back with a Y, and then we're just going to block off the front ports. So I have these block offs from Evil Energy that I got on Amazon. These will basically just close off the front part of the rail, and then our feed will come in the rear, which will be a much cleaner setup. So I had to loosen my rails because there's not enough clearance here. Not a big deal. So we're gonna get these snugged up on here, and then we're gonna do our fittings in the rear with go from a -8 to a -6, which is plenty for what my current setup will run, and then I'll get it in the car at some point and we'll finish up. So I've been working on this today. I had other distractions in the shop, so I didn't really film anything, but wanted to show you Headers are in, spark plugs are in and torqued. Power steering pump is back on and the hose is connected. Manifold is on. I still have a little bit of work to do here. Block off is there. I've got 2 fittings back there. My plan is to run a crossover tube in the rear, run from that fuel pressure regulator straight up to the rail. I think that's going to be the best option. I was going to just run it to the back, but I didn't really like how I was going to have to wire the thing, so we're not doing it like that. Map sensor will be here tomorrow. I have a bracket that I bought for the throttle cable that I think is going to work. Fingers crossed on that. Hold on, I got something to show you. So this is my radiator setup, and somehow, well, I know how. I managed to knock a drill off and I took a big chunk out of it, and now I don't trust it. So I bought another one. It's actually an LS swap radiator from Champion Radiators. It relocates this upper outlet to over here, which is ideal for what we're doing because it comes over anyway, and it kind of looked ugly. So anyway, I'm gonna need to take this fan shroud off and relocate it to the other one. It should be really straightforward, and I don't know if we'll get that radiator fixed, but that was unfortunate. So this is pretty much all that's left to go back on the car. I don't really need the wiper motor in there to get it going. The starter, the air intake, I have the alternator off because I need to prime the engine before we fire it. And then obviously the spark plugs. And then my awesome LSA valve covers. Those are gonna go on. After I prime the engine, I'm gonna pull the old valve covers off and we'll prime the engine, and then that way we can see the oil getting to the top, and then we'll throw those on and we'll be ready to fire it. It's time for me to install the heater core. Probably not much exciting to show you. This is the heater core all mounted up. I redid the brackets so they were not rusty. A brand new aftermarket unit from Four Seasons, so it should fit well. All right, you can see our heater core is now in. I still have to run that line. I went ahead and made the fuel rail crossover, and I made the fuel rail over here. So we're all good as far as fuel goes. The next thing I'm gonna do is put some power steering fluid in it, and then I think I'm gonna mess with the wiring, get the wiring all laid out, and there's a little bit to do underneath. I can go ahead and hook up the AC compressor lines and put my radiator in and that stuff. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and just lay this harness out where it goes. And oh, and I also got the brake booster hose hooked up, so we're all good there. That just runs in the back. So let's go ahead and get these wires put where they go. All right, so this here is a heater control valve. This is vacuum operated, and it opens when I turn the heat on, and that'll allow coolant to flow into the heater core that we just replaced. So I'm gonna go ahead and heat these. These are heat shrink clamps. So rather than having ugly silver ones, we're just gonna heat these up. They shrink into place pretty easily, and you'll see them kind of move around a little bit as they go into place. So we'll just put some heat on them, and then that will clamp those in place, and we won't need to worry about these things coming loose on us. And plus they look better. You can actually take off the writing with a little acetone. So that's what we'll do. So they make specific heat range or heat shrink sizes. So the ones that I got were for each of the different hoses. And they're, I don't know, $4 or $5 a piece. I personally think they look better than regular clamps, so that's what we're rolling with. All right, so there's one. I'm gonna go ahead and put another one on. This is actually 1/16 through 3/16. That should be good there. So we'll go ahead and heat that up. I've got some for the fittings on the car too, so we'll get those as well. You can get these at O'Reilly. They're not. I got some from O'Reilly, some from Amazon. Price is dependent on, I guess, demand. I don't know. So that's really all it takes to heat these in place. You can use a torch, but it's a little harder to control the heat, so I generally just use my heat gun. Oh, sorry, and so that's it. Those things are on there. They're not going anywhere. So we'll let that cool off. Actually, I got one more to do here, and then we'll let everything cool, and then we will put it on the car. Been doing some work off camera. It wasn't really fun to watch, so I didn't subject you to it, but I have the Y pipe back on. It actually fit up really nice. There's no gaps at all in the clamps this time, which is awesome. You'll notice I do not have an exhaust. I got to order. I'm going to put the Hawks 2 out the left. And right here, we're going to have a cutout right there, just like, let me see if you can see the one on my Firehawk. Well, it's under there somewhere. Yeah, I'll show you later. So I need to order that exhaust. That other one I had was junk and it's noisy and it drones. But if you want to buy it, let me know. Okay, wiring's all ready to go. Throttle cable. So our throttle cable bracket from the LS6 intake doesn't work because this is an LS3. So I bought this one, and can you believe it? It doesn't quite fit. So I've already marked it up. I'm gonna have to take a little bit off of there so that the fuel rail will sit correctly. It probably would work okay on the factory fuel rail. I gotta take a little bit off of there. We only need the right side piece of this because the left side is for cruise control, which this doesn't have. So I'm gonna take that, trim it, clean it up. I'm gonna also kind of pare it down a little bit. It's built a little overkill for what we need. So let's get that cut up. Okay, so there's the bracket that I just finished up. It still needs to have some paint on it, but you can see it clears the inside of the fuel rail now. So we're good there. It's in line with our throttle body. So I just basically need to pull the throttle cable over, hook it up real quick. It's gonna run along here. I'm gonna probably make a little standoff or something. And then that'll be ready to go. It needs a coat of paint, obviously. Okay, there's our final product. I already checked and everything fits great. We used SEM color coat in satin black. This stuff is absolutely awesome. And so that'll be ready to go on. I'm gonna let it dry overnight completely, and then I got the cable adjusted for the throttle body, so that's all taken care of. There's just a couple of steps left. We've got to put some oil in the thing. We're going to pressurize the system again and send oil throughout everything like we did before. I got to get the radiator ready to go in with the fans, get the intake on, and we're going to pull those valve covers when we pressurize the oil system. That way we can see when the oil reaches the top. And then we're going to swap out those valve covers for the LSA ones with the coils and all that. So getting close. You can see there's no oil. I know that. We're going to put oil in it when we pressurize it, and then we'll make sure there's plenty. So really close, really close. This is our replacement radiator from Champion. This is our existing fan shroud with spall fans that I've already replaced. It all lines up perfectly. We're going to use my favorite tool, the riv nut gun, and put riv nuts in this radiator support piece here. That way we can just unbolt it and we don't have to mess with any nuts or anything. We'll just screw it right in. I may have to enlarge these holes a little bit to fit the riv nut, but we're going to go ahead and do that. And then I've got some fittings that screw in here for the inlet outlet. I don't remember which is which. I think this is the outlet. Everything else should be good. We're going to have to plug this hole here. We're not going to be using that. So let's go ahead and get that done. All right, so I drilled these out to a 3/8 hole. That way our riv nut, which I'm using a 1/4 is perfect. Got all those in. So pretty much now all we need to do is lay our fan shroud on here. I'm gonna put a little bit of Loctite on our bolts and we can sandwich that in, and this is ready to drop in once these are on. So let's get that. Okay, I put that plug in. I didn't film that. I forgot to hit record, but this is our fittings that go in here. The top is 1.25 inches on this application. The bottom is 1.5 inches. It's a nice billet piece. So these have an O-ring, so we don't really need to do anything else. And then there's a flat spot for a wrench. You basically just undo this. We got to lubricate both O-rings, and then we can screw these in and tighten them down. Then we'll be able to connect our hoses. So now I'm moving on to some of the hoses, and I'm gonna just admit I have some pretty bad OCD issues. So what I'm looking at right now are the heater hoses where they go to the different valving for the heater core. This one has a nice radius. I used a kind of a 90 here, and well, to be honest, I hate the way that looks. I've already used my heat shrink tubing there, but we're gonna cut this off because I hate it. It looks awful, and you're probably not even gonna see it, but I can't stand it. So we're gonna cut this off. We're gonna actually put a nice radius piece like this, and that should take care of it. Okay, so this new piece looks 100 times better. It fits better. I did have to order some more clamps, which is not a big deal. They will be here tomorrow actually. And then we'll pull this in basically just like this. Have a nice radius there. I know it's a really minor detail, and maybe you guys watch my channel because I stress over stuff like this, or you can empathize, but that's where we are. So we'll just pop off one end tomorrow and slide those on, and then heat shrink them, and we'll be good to go. So if you think those clamps are expensive, which $6 a piece, I guess they are, but this is what you can do if you've got just a regular old worm clamp. You can see that's just a regular clamp. You can take a piece of heat shrink tubing, put that on there, heat it up, and then you put the drive part of it underneath so you can't see it, and then from the top it just looks like a nice black clamp. So that's one other way to deal with that. Ideally I would have probably just saved my money and done that, because I've already cut off several of these to switch the radiator, and I'm gonna have to do some more when I configure these hoses for the top. But that's just part of it. I mean, there's stuff just kind of laying around. It is what it is. Okay, I got my hose clamps and all that situated. I still am waiting on the ones for the heater hose. However, I went ahead and I decided, rather than spending all my money on hose clamps for the radiator, I would make these the way I talked about with a little bit of heat shrink tubing on a regular worm clamp. Those turned out nice, so now if I need to service the engine, I don't have to cut a clamp off. These, I went ahead and used the heat shrink ones because I don't really ever need to take that off. The only reason I had to was to shorten the tube here, because originally when I did the swap, I used a 3rd gen radiator and it goes over to that side and then comes over here. I didn't like that because it was kind of ugly. It, like, I don't know, it was an aesthetic thing mostly. So now, oh, this has got to go here. So now we've got all that. I still need to put the clamp thing on here, or not the clamp, the cap. I've got a nice billet cap for that. And then that should be pretty much it. We'll be ready to fire this thing. I don't know when I'm gonna have time to do that, but you'll see it in the next clip most likely, because I think all we've got to do is prime the oil system, put the alternator and the belt on, and swap the valve covers and put our coils on, and that should be it. It should be ready to fire. I think I'll probably load the program, the new program for the LS3 into the Terminator X off camera, and then I'm gonna throw this on real quick, and then we'll see what happens.